this conflict has everything anybody could ever want out of a conflict if you were looking to obsess over something. You've got oppressor, oppressee, you've got Jews and Muslims, you've got brown and white, you've got West and East, you've got, there's just like anybody that wants to read anything into this conflict can literally find whatever they want to read into it.
That's interesting. Let's riff off of the point that you just made, which is oppressor, oppressee. A lot of times in Western media, we get a sense that Israel is the big bad wolf, Palestinians are the victims, they're small, Israel's big. Throughout this tour, I've tried to impress upon you a different perspective, that Israel is actually a small country, an armed ethnic minority in this region, that is really oppressed by the much broader Arab/jihadist state of affairs that runs in Arab countries, and that really we have a tight noose around us. Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran pushing into Iraq and maybe even Jordan, the Houthis in Yemen, the armed Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank, and even Arab Israelis who see themselves as part of the Palestinian narrative with the hope of destroying Israel. So I see ourselves as being actually a small minority in a tough strategic situation. And I've tried to sell you that. Did you buy into it at all, or?
No. I think that one thing
Fair
that I
enough.
feel, one thing that I feel historically is
Actually, I don't think it's fair, but
That's
okay, go
fine.
ahead, yeah.
I think that Arab unity and Muslim unity is a myth, and I think Jews have believed it for a long time, and I think Arabs have believed it for a long time. But
So Jews and Arabs believe it, but it's a myth.
It's a myth, yeah, because every time Arabs call upon each other to go to war to get rid of Israel, I think that the competing interests are always more pressing to them than the unified, fighting against Israel. I think it's a conflict of conflict. Yeah.
The stuff that I said, which is that the jihad has taken over Gaza, southern Lebanon, Iraq, Iran, Yemen. That's a myth?
I didn't say that's a myth, but who are their main enemies?
Meaning?
Other Muslims, other Arabs, Saudi Arabia.
Well, they've declared war against Israel. We just had an attack from Gaza that killed 1,200 in one shot. And Yemen has declared war against Israel, the Houthis have anyway, and shooting rockets at us.
The Houthis have, and who have the Houthis been fighting for over a decade? Saudi Arabia, Saudi-led coalition, right?
They have other enemies.
The Iraq-Iran war was, two ostensibly Syrian, the Ba'ath Party, but whatever. I mean, you've got two Muslim countries, two Arab countries, or
right.
Arab, Persian, I'm sorry. But like two Muslim countries going to war with each other. You've got how many? I mean, who kills Arabs the best is other Arabs. Look at the Syrian civil war. Look at how many people starved to death in Yemen.
That's true, but that doesn't mean that Israel is not in danger.
I didn't say that they're not in danger. I'm just saying that the danger is different than it's in 2024. It's not the Arab-Israeli conflict, and even historically, again, that Arab unity was a myth. Nasser called up Hussein and he lied. He said, "Those are my planes going back in the 6-day war. I promise." And then Jordan basically gets obliterated. They were Israeli planes coming back. Yeah.
But I'm making a point which is being missed here, which is that Israel's not the big boy around here. There's serious enemies that Israel faces, and we actually lost on October the 7th. We let our guard down, and I'm saying Israel can't let its guard down. It can't cut up its land and give it away to the jihad. That doesn't work. And Israel has got to see itself, it's got to see the enemies as big and strong, and itself as on the knife's edge, surviving out here, and not taking for granted what our enemies want to do.
I agree. The enemies of Israel need to be seen as big and strong, but I think that the problem is that right now, Israel is divided, and I don't think they see their enemies accurately. It's not the standing armies of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria anymore. It's the international propaganda war. It's the weakness of Israel's strength and the strength of the Palestinian weakness. It's the way that Western media can be influenced by 30,000 dead Palestinians. We've toured through Palestinian areas. I personally happen to support Israel in the current conflict. I think that Israel has a right to exist. I can give every single factual argument, I think, to further that point, but nothing is going to compare to, watching an old guy outside of his home that, his family's been evicted from, saying like, hey, yeah, I can't live here anymore, and this is where we came after 48, and now we're getting evicted again. Or, these are people shaking, exploded babies in front of cameras and stuff. And I understand this exists on both sides, but again, I think you have to impress upon Israelis, and I know that you guys have your immediate history, but the world doesn't see this as the Arab-Israeli conflict anymore. Right. They see it as the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
Well, that's exactly my point, which is that it's become skewed and warped. And that's why I want to redraw in people's minds. And that's why when I was on Piers Morgan, I took out the map of Israel being this tiny spot within the broader Arab world. And I think it's an important point to make.
But Israel's biggest enemies aren't even Arabs anymore. They're Persians, right? It's Iran is like the biggest threat. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me shift it a little bit because I want to ask you about your expertise.
Sure.
Okay?
Video games.
No. Well, no, you have an expertise in what you started mentioning, which is perception. And clearly Israel is not doing it quite right. We're not being perceived as a victim. If you had to give advice to Israel in terms of the perception war, what I call the narrative war, what would it be?
I don't know how you could ever fight against the reverse David and Goliath that has happened, where it's Israel and Palestine. I don't think Palestinians have enough support from any foreign government to ever make that look appealing to people.
Say that again?
I don't think the Palestinians have enough foreign, like, military support to ever make this fight look appealing on the outside, like such that, like, oh, well, Israel is in an existential battle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm like, you told me earlier, like, if you're not religious, how do you understand this, blah, blah, blah. And I'll ask you to flip it. Like, just think of the perception from the outside. It's like, okay, October 7th was a threatening attack to all of Israel's existence. We lost 1,200 people. But the 8-month war that we've conducted in Gaza, where some, I don't know, 20 to 40,000, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but at least 20,000 Palestinians are dead, even if half of them are Hamas. Like, there's no person that looks at that and goes, wow, yeah, October 7th was a huge threat to Israel, but yeah, you know, the Palestinians sure do have the upper hand. Like, nobody sees it that way.
Yeah. It's interesting, you know, the Israeli Hasbara machine keeps on saying, like, well, you know, the amount of civilians to combatant casualty rate is very, very low, but it doesn't jive.